U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic opponent Kamala Harris have agreed to a debate. Set for September 10th on ABC, it will be the first face-to-face matchup between the rivals in what polls show is an extremely close race. On Thursday afternoon, Trump appeared publicly for the first time since Harris picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate.
I think it's very important to have debates.
Trump said he wanted additional debates on September 4th and September 25th that would air on Fox and NBC. He had previously suggested he might back out of the ABC debate, which was scheduled before Harris replaced President Joe Biden as the Democratic candidate less than 3 weeks ago. After Trump's comments, Harris spoke to reporters before leaving Michigan.
I'm glad that he's finally agreed to a debate on September 10th. I'm looking forward to it and hope he shows up.
An Ipsos poll published on Thursday found Harris had widened her lead over Trump. She leads Trump 42% to 37%, compared to a 37% to 34% lead over Trump in late July. Echoing a recent attack line from his campaign, Trump criticized Harris for not doing a press interview since she replaced Biden on the Democratic ticket.
She can't do an interview. She's barely competent.
Trump has conducted a steady stream of media interviews, though they are usually with friendly, right-leaning outlets and reporters. Trump announced his Thursday news conference in the morning on his social media platform, and only a select group of reporters were given the advance notice needed to travel to his Florida resort in time. Reuters was not extended an invitation. Harris told reporters Thursday she wants to schedule a sit-down interview, quote, by the end of the week.
This video from the Russian Defense Ministry released Thursday purports to show its forces striking Ukrainian armored vehicles on Russian soil. Fighting in Russia's Kursk region continued for a third day after Ukrainian forces smashed through the Russian border in an audacious attack on the world's biggest nuclear power that has forced Moscow to call in reserves. Drone footage released by the Ukrainian military purports to show Russian forces surrendering at a border crossing. Speaking on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, quote, everyone can see that the Ukrainian army knows how to surprise and knows how to achieve results. He did not directly reference the Kursk offensive. Russian President Vladimir Putin cast the attack as a, quote, major provocation.
Was the White House made aware prior to?
No. The White House said the United States, Ukraine's biggest backer, had no prior knowledge of the attack and would seek more details from Kyiv. Washington has cautioned Ukraine against striking into Russian territory, fearing it could escalate the conflict.
Ескалація – це тільки те, що робить Російська Федерація.
In a televised interview on Thursday, Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak did not directly address the offensive, but said such maneuvers were both necessary and lawful for a nation under attack.
Перше, міжнародне право чітко трактує.
International law clearly states that a country waging defensive war has a legal right to execute strikes regardless of how deep certain infrastructure is in the enemy territory. We have a legal right to destroy everything regardless of the distance, be it 100 kilometers, 10 kilometers, or 1,000 kilometers deep into Russian Federation territory. This is a legally correct action.
The operation comes at what could be a critical juncture in the conflict. Kyiv is concerned that U.S. support could drop off if Republican Donald Trump wins the November presidential election. Trump has said he would end the war, and both Russia and Ukraine are keen to gain the strongest possible bargaining position on the battlefield.
These Serbians want to stop the construction of what would be Europe's biggest lithium mine. The protests have been seen in dozens of cities across Serbia over the past month, sparked by 48-year-old farmer Zlatko Kokanovic and his neighbors in Gornja Nedelice, who voiced concerns the mine would pollute their land and endanger public health. Some protesters say they're even ready to physically stop machinery to prevent the mine's construction. Lithium is a key component used in mobile devices and electric vehicles. In July, Serbia reinstated mining corporation Rio Tinto's license to develop its first European lithium mine in the western Jadar region, 2 years after it was annulled due to protests by environmental groups. The $2.4 billion project could cover 90% of Europe's current lithium needs, making Rio Tinto one of the world's leading lithium producers. Kokanovic says the mine would free the European Union from reliance on lithium from China, quote, at the expense of our health. In June, Rio Tinto said newly published studies found the project would be safe for local communities. And to ease fears, the Serbian Health Ministry formed a commission to study the impact of lithium mining on human health. Still, residents continue to protest the mine, and a deal signed last month giving EU members access to Serbian raw materials. Activist Liliana Berlovic says, quote, "Nobody wants a country that has become a waste dump, that has become a poison pit." Protesters say they're prepared to escalate if the government fails to pass legislation by August 10th banning lithium exploration. But the government regards the project as a key way to bolster Serbia's troubled economy and has so far not considered the demand.
Nobel Peace Laureate Muhammad Yunus was sworn in as leader of Bangladesh's new interim government on Thursday. Yunus made an emotional return home to Bangladesh after weeks of student protests killed about 300 people and injured thousands, forcing Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign and flee to neighbouring India. A harsh critic of Hasina, the 84-year-old arrived in Dhaka from Paris, where he'd been receiving medical treatment. Protesters had backed him to head the caretaker government, which is tasked with holding elections for a new leader. People in the capital, Dhaka, welcomed his appointment, hoping for a new era in Bangladeshi politics.
The example that the young generation is set of giving this country a rebirth, we are expecting that Yunus will be able to take it further to reconstruct our nation.
I earnestly request the new government to put an end to bad politics in the country so the poor working class can live in peace.
The economist, known as the banker to the poor, received the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize for founding a bank that pioneered the fight against poverty through small loans to needy borrowers. Yunus was sworn in as chief of a team of advisors at the official residence of President Mohamed Shahabuddin. Two student leaders in their 20s who led the protests, Nahid Islam and Asif Mahmood, will also join the caretaker government, local media reported. Hasina's Awami League party does not figure in the interim government after she resigned on Monday. In a post on Facebook, her son said the party had not given up and was ready to hold talks with opponents and the interim government. Hasina's flight from the country came after she ruled for 20 of the last 30 years, after winning a fourth straight term in January. The student-led movement that ousted Hasina grew out of protests against quotas in government jobs that spiralled in July, provoking a violent crackdown, though the government denied excessive use of force. The protests were fueled also by harsh economic conditions and political repression in the country.
This is the moment that former Catalan separatist leader Carles Puigdemont stepped away from a podium at a rally in Barcelona and disappeared. There's an outstanding warrant for Puigdemont's arrest, and the hunt for him caused traffic chaos in Barcelona and near the French border. Authorities suspect Puigdemont got into a white car belonging to one of the region's autonomous police officers after the speech and left the vicinity. He had fled to Belgium 7 years ago after a failed secession bid and has been living in exile ever since. He returned to Spain to tell a crowd that he aimed to revive the independence drive that plunged the country into political crisis in 2017, after which he was charged with embezzlement related to the independence referendum. Reacting to news that Puigdemont had once again evaded a large police deployment, a Supreme Court source said a judge had been clear that the former Catalan president was to be arrested. The regional police, known as the Mossos d'Esquadra, said 2 of its officers had been arrested as part of their investigation into Puigdemont's whereabouts, including the owner of the white car. A government spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment, nor did Puigdemont's lawyer. Catalonia's parliament on Thursday afternoon confirmed Socialist Salvador Illa, an ally of Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, as head of the Catalan government. The vote ends a decade of separatist rule in the region.
Like many other children in Gaza, 3-year-old Yasmin al-Shambari is ravaged by skin disease. There's little chance of relief for her. The 10-month war between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas has left Gaza with no clean water, streets running with sewage, and a shortage of aid and medicine. Tiny insects flit around the little girl's face, while piles of garbage rot in the summer heat outside the burnt-out school in which she and her father Ahmed are taking shelter, in Jabalia refugee camp in the north. They're displaced like most people in Gaza.
We really suffer a lot from skin diseases in the school. The schools, first of all, are dilapidated and there's no cleanliness. As you can see, the school is overcrowded and not every child is like the other. Each child is different, even from different areas. For example, my daughter Yasmin is sensitive to diseases. The diseases she has on her face have been there for almost 10 days now.
Ammar al-Masharawi, 2.5 years old, has a fiery rash all over his face and body. His father Ahmed is seeking treatment for him in Kamal Adwan Hospital. They've tried others to no avail.
The reason is the lack of food and medicine, a shortage of everything. We are suffering from everything. There is no medicine or food for the children. These children were recently weaned and they can't find eggs, bananas, or anything good to support them. There is no milk, semolina, or anything at all. We adults manage somehow, but the children, God help them.
Skin diseases are not the only illnesses stalking children in one of the most densely populated places on Earth. The World Health Organization has sounded the alarm that hepatitis A and polio are spreading among children. It blamed a chronic scarcity of water and trash and sewage in the streets, all compounded by people living crowded into shelters where they have to stand in line for hours to use the toilets. Dr. Wissam As-Sakani.
The overcrowding of citizens in shelters has also contributed to the rapid spread of skin diseases. Yesterday, we were talking about hepatitis, and today we are talking about contagious skin diseases. Every day there are new diseases spreading among children, such as vitiligo, tinea, psoriasis, and scabies.